For our second task, we're asked to create expression-based audit policies, which, as I'd mentioned, are ways to kind of dial down exactly what gets audited after you set that master toggle switch for a machine that happens to receive this group policy object. So these are mostly intended, honestly, for file access auditing. That's the main reason for their use. In order to use them, you've got to make settings in a couple of different locations. The first happens here in our advanced audit policy configuration, where we can enable object access right over here, and then the subcategory audit file system right here. So for this, we can turn on audit file system and enable success and failure audits on the file system. But that turns on just the ability to then audit the file system. It doesn't actually begin auditing the things that go on until you go about actually enabling the specific auditing entries in each location that you want to audit. So let me hit the OK button here, and I want to flip over to my other computer, file 1. This is that machine, file1.company.pri, that we've been working with for quite a bit actually here in this course. And on the E drive, where we've got our little company shared location, what I want to do is under Properties, show you under the Security tab, a somewhat buried location where you can go about configuring the auditing entries right alongside the access control entries for this folder. Here under Advanced, you're used to seeing this list of permissions here. You're probably also used to seeing the share permissions that exist here in the second tab. But it's this third tab here under Auditing where you can actually go about creating an auditing entry right next to the ACLs that identify for a specific user or group of people what kinds of permissions are you interested in auditing? What kinds of activities of that user do you want to really pay attention to? Now, the first thing you have to do is identify the security principle of whom you're interested in watching. So, for example, domain users could be a security principle. It could also be a specific user if you wanted to as well. For that user or group, do you want to choose success or failure or all types of different entries? Do you apply this then to this folder, subfolders, the files in the folder, and all the other different options that can correspond with this folder and everything around it? Now, when you do that also, you have the ability down here to define which of the permission usages are you interested in auditing. So when a person attempts to modify a document or read or write a document, only then are you interested in capturing that in that security event log. If you wanted to, you could show some advanced permissions here to get even more granular with the types of things that you're interested in watching for. Now, down here at the bottom is another way that you can go about further adding conditions to limit the scope of this auditing entry. Remember that the whole point here is to try to reduce the amount of entries, the sheer volume of entries that exist in that security log. And so anytime you're building these and you have a really good feel for what kinds of information you want to include, it can be a good idea down here to create a condition so that the user group is a member of each, for example, value and so on, would allow you to then identify specifically which kinds of users and groups are performing which kinds of actions. So this is really how you go about using or creating these expression-based audit policies. I will tell you that these conditions down here at the bottom, for the most part, don't make too much sense until you start integrating them with dynamic access control, which is a topic for the 70-412 exam. When you start pulling in dynamic access control, these conditions can do some really cool things as far as classifications that have been applied onto those files and folders and determining what the auditing entries would be based off of the classifications that you've applied. And again, that's a 412 conversation, but we'll talk about it as you complete this exam and move on to the next one.